Hello and welcome to another episode of Interviews with Hyperpolyglots at HYPIA. I'm President Dr. Usman Chohan, and today I have the pleasure of the company of one of HYPIA's new members, promising members, Francesca. Welcome, Francesca.
Hello, hello. Mm, Thank you very much for inviting me for this interview, and it's very pleasure for me.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
It's my pleasure. How do you pronounce your last name?
Francesca,
Gervasio?
Francesca,
Gervasio?
Gervasio,
Gervasio.
Gervasio.
Awesome. So you've been a member of HYPIA for a while. You've been one of the most positive and excited members on social media. You're always welcoming new members with us. It's a very nice attitude. So thank you for that. And tell us a little bit about how many languages you speak or are studying right now.
Yeah. So I can speak Italian. It's my language. I can speak English because I started learning it when I was 8 years old. French, and I studied it furthermore to university, and French and Hindi, Urdu, Spanish, Portuguese. But as regards Portuguese and Japanese, I studied for my own, so it's still intermediate level. So I keep studying them, but I'm studying also the other languages, but when I am free because I have work. So when I am free in the spare time, I want to study them, and I try to study all languages I want. So it's very complicated sometimes, but I keep doing this.
Well, it's common for most HYPIA members to have to balance between work and their passion of languages. Some people connect them because they will work as diplomats, interpreters, lawyers, or in service industry like tourism, then they're lucky. For the rest of us, we can use it less in our jobs. So what is the nature of your job? What do you do?
Yeah, currently I'm a French teacher, so I teach in at high school for my students. So I teach French language. So I'm happy because I love French. I love speaking French, and currently I'm teaching grammar, furthermore grammar, and later I teach them some aspects of the French literature. And so I'm very happy because I dream of that, and it's my dream. But even if I dream working in the publishing field, and indeed I'm doing some classes for publishing in the publishing field. So because I want to work in that field, and so um, in but languages in this case are very useful because you can correct the books, the new books, and if these books are written in foreign languages, you can translate, or you can translate too, and so you can read and translate, and you can do both these two activities, and I like doing them. So it's all my dreams. Now I'm a teacher. One day I hope doing that too.
Well, that's wonderful. Now, teaching is a very good way to learn also. So tell us about the age level that you teach and what are the students like, and do you see differences in how they learn? Some learn fast, some learn slow. What is the experience of teaching?
Yeah. As regards my first experience teaching, because it's my first experience in as a teacher, I must say that is a wonderful experience, and I realized that teaching a language must not be just very static activity, but this activity must be fun. And personally, thanks to social networks, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube channels, there are very wonderful videos about each language we want to learn. So thanks to my academic process in the university, I realized that teaching learning language, it's not just about learning rules, structures in grammar, but you have to have fun in when you learn a language, because each language is a universe, a complicated universe with own structures, own rules. But fortunately, there are a lot of resources, because when I started learning English, I didn't use Pitchy, because I was 8 years old, so there was still this great development of internet. So I used just books and dictionaries. Now it's easier because there are electronic dictionaries. So in some aspects, these dictionaries are more useful than a normal dictionary, because you see a term, a word, that you can, this word is, you can see how works that term in a sentence. So you can see how you can make the construction of that term in a sentence. So it's easier in some aspects, actually, in this period now. So with my students, I try to make this each class, I try to make very funny, because I realize from my experience that it's learning a language must not just experience about learning language, learn rules, learn structures, but that must be a funny moment, and I told them learning languages is important for health, for the health, for the brain, because you try to understand that sentence, try to understand a more complex sentences gradually. So it's very useful for the health, for your health, for your brain. So it's very, very precious moment, and no easy.
And you've made learning languages fun for yourself, particularly the Far Eastern languages, something like Japanese and Korean. You've done that with the relationships with anime, right? So what animes do you like and what do you watch?
No, actually, my boyfriend loves a lot animes. So during a Japanese class, we met each other. So Japanese was a very romantic moment, because I met my boyfriend during these classes, Japanese classes. But for my experience, I started Japanese when I was studying Hindi, because in my university, Orientale of Naples, in the south of Italy, this is one of the free universities where you can study languages, Oriental languages. For example, Arabic, Japanese, Korean, Indonesian also. And when I was reading some pages for Hindi, I listened to some Japanese, some students who studied were studying Japanese, and I was fascinated by them. And so I remember that during the night, I spent my time in learning hiragana, katakana. So after the second graduation, I decided to studying officially Japanese. And in the June, I went while I was working in a hotel all the day. I succeed to pass my exam in Japanese, my first exam, and I after that I kept studying Japanese. But while I was studying Japanese, I studied Korean and Chinese too. And in my opinion, the most difficult one is Korean, because Korean presents a lot of vowels. So it's, if you want to write a word, it's not just so easy, because you can think about the right vowels, how to write. Even if when I was watching a video on YouTube, most of Korean people told that the most difficult language for them is English. So you can see how it's very wonderful, this switch of perspectives for them and me, because for me Korean is very complicated. As regards Chinese, fortunately presents a very poor grammar. So the most difficult aspect is memorizing the characters. But fortunately, thanks to my studies in Japanese, I succeed in memorizing those characters, because the characters are the same, but the pronouns of them is very different, because in Japanese there will be that pronouns, and in Chinese the other one. But I must say, thanks to my Japanese studies, I can understand easier that character, even if the pronunciation is different, because these are two completely different languages. And in unfortunately, some say that Japanese, Korean, Chinese are the same thing, but it's, it's not absolutely correct. But because we are people interest in this aspect, in the culture, in the knowledge of language, culture. So if you started learning that language, it's not just about a linguistic experience, because you started searching on Google the photos of that landscape, the cook field, the traditions, for example, thanks to my university, I studied not just language, but I studied through literature, Indian literature. So for example, my teacher told us about the Hijra's questions, that this figure of Hijra, transgender question, transgender matter, or Sufi, the Sufism. So the influence of Sufism on the Indian literature. So it was for me very useful, because I during my Indian Hindi classes, thanks to social network, I met a lot of Indian people, and in particular, I I keep chatting by WhatsApp with my friends from Lucknow, and I can talk with them about these aspects of India, and they sometimes make questions about my country. So, for example, they told me that my country is very wonderful for example, for landscapes, the cook, the plats, the dishes. So they told me they want to come here, and they want to eat pizza because that pizza made there, it's not very delicious. So they want to come here and sightseeing and eating, and it's very wonderful for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And do you say that the current conditions, like with coronavirus and everything, do you think it makes learning languages easier or harder?
Actually, no. For me, it no changed a lot, because it's true that if you have a possibility to travel, it's easier learn a language, because you have contact with the other people, with the native people of that country. But fortunately, there are social networks. So I saw that on Facebook there are continually the meetings organized each weekend. So the people can participate to these meetings, and they can practice their skills. But I want to say also that having a possibility to go there, to go Korean, to go to India, to go to France, and etc. It's very, very useful, because each day constantly keep maintaining contact with these people, and you have to make efforts to speak, to understand. So that in that case, it's very, very useful. But when I told you before about my when I was starting learning language when I was 8 years old, and it was very difficult, because I used just my books. So but it's the same with the other subjects I studied, because I didn't use social networks. So for example, I studied Latin and Greek, ancient Latin and Greek. Now I saw that there are websites where you can find the verbs in ancient Greek. You can see those grammar structures, and I realized that for me it was very, very it would be very, very useful, but I don't care about them. But fortunately, if you can use social network properly, you can find that those resources that will be very useful to you. But I hope after coronavirus experience, we can travel again, and so keep improving our language skills.
That's true. A good social network is, in fact, HYPIA. I know that every week or 2 weeks there is a conversation that switches between languages over a 2 to 3 hour period. This is organized by Matthias, director at HYPIA, and Hugh Cuvinage. And they do it, and people talk, and it's very nice. And so, how do you find your experience of joining HYPIA and meeting some of the people in it personally for you?
Well, it's thanks to social networks, because I told you that on Facebook there are a lot of language groups where you can talk about your language working, your language experiences. So when there was a question about how many languages you can speak, so I answered them, and some were very shocked. And so a person suggested Matthias. So Matthias saw that and contacted to me, and I made all the interview, the video. I recorded my video. I wrote my essay where I wrote about my language experiences, and I was very happy because I searched something similar, because I'm very happy because HYPIA is a wonderful organization, because it's about the languages, this wonderful universe of languages. And one aspect I was fascinated from was about the language. The languages are very, very known. So those languages are not so spoken in the world, and minorities. So about minorities, it's very wonderful, because, for example, I studied a subject called cultural anthropology, and through these studies, I find out that there are a lot of languages I didn't know. And so, thanks to my studies, French, Hindi, thanks to my university, I studied the other subjects around this language world, as anthropology, as linguistics. So, and I must say, the linguistics studies are very useful, because you study the system, the language system, and you begin to perceive the different aspects, the similar aspects between a language and the other language. And I want to say also that I repeat this aspect about the union between language and culture. And each culture is another world, and you can develop well open-minded in this way, because you can see those aspects, and you begin to understand gradually those aspects, and you can know gradually these people, and you try understand the traditions of that people. So it's very wonderful, amazing experience. So fortunately, I was satisfied my studies, of my graduations, and of HYPIA, because it's the fact that there is this international organization about languages, about each aspect of a language, and about a language spoken just by a few people. It's very wonderful, and so congratulations. Thank you very much. And I like being a member of this international group. So thank you very much.
You're most welcome. The wonderful thing about HYPIA is also that it's decentralized. So it doesn't revolve around me or the other directors. It revolves around you and people like you. And people take their own initiatives and do things regionally. It's harder in coronavirus, but they do things online as communities, sub-communities within HYPIA. This is the wonderful part. And you made an important point about some languages being rare or in danger. And so HYPIA has this version or segment for rare languages. But the problem is rare languages are by definition rare. It's hard to find the people to join it. And so that is our challenge. So usually you find people who speak the Romance languages. This is very common. Maybe they will do a few other things like Japanese or Chinese. Some do Arabic, Hebrew. But generally, it's quite concentrated. And so the distribution of languages is pretty much the same as you would find in the distribution of languages out there in terms of speakers. This is our challenge. And we have to ask ourselves, are we personally making an effort to study rare languages? So I don't speak any language that is very rare. The smallest language I speak would probably still have 200 million speakers. So it's a lot. It's a lot.
It's necessary to have constancy. So in this way, you can improving yourself, improving ourselves each day gradually. So because it's not easy. It's not easy because I know if, for example, if I want to start with the Thai language, I know for me, for an Italian person, won't be easy because Thai is as another system,
Yes.
another structure, and so that I know already that that experience won't be easy, but we simply we have a passion for languages, and so I don't care about the difficulties because it's always a very funny moment, a very precious moment, because you in this moment you are having a, a new experience. So it's not a question of about showing your abilities, your skills. No, it's an interest about that language, and automatically that about that culture. Because, for example, I don't know a lot of things about Thai, about Thailand. So I have to I have to be passionate, and I have to remember that learning a language, whatever language you want to study, must be a very precious moment for yourself, for myself, and it's not a question about pressure. It's not because you have to show to someone your skills, your abilities. So for whatever language you want to study or you want to explore simply, because you perhaps you are not still ready for that language. You at the beginning you try to make an effort in this language, but if you are not ready, I'm never mind, I don't care, you can come back later and you can study with more constancy with for this language. And so basically I want to say learning languages should be soft, more more peaceful moment, precious moment. It's natural having difficulties because each language is very complicated, because it's you have to understand that structure, how to make properly that sentence. And for between French and Italian, it's not so easy, because when I'm Italian, for example, my classmates, some classmates at university had a lot of difficulties, because there are some French aspects we Italian don't use when we have to make a construction of that sentence. So even if there are French, Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, that there are they are languages belong to the same family, but it's not so easy, because there even if you, for example, in Hindi, as regards Hindi, I know this language. I have been studying this language for 5-6 years, but it's still complicated, because it's necessary to memorize the words and to understanding that structure. So it's not so easy, but we are just humans. So it's needed to be more passion towards to ourselves, and so we have just to have fun if we want to learn a language.
Well, I think that's an excellent message for people to do it as a kind of personal interest, explore it, and have some fun doing it. I've noticed that HYPIA has a very fun-loving environment and an encouraging environment, because I think people share, in general, they share your attitude towards it. That's a wonderful thing. My last question to you is, do you find that learning languages is becoming more difficult as we age, as we get older, or it's pretty much the same as we get older?
Yeah, it's very interesting question. And I now I have to study for an exam, lessicology. It's called lessicologia in Italian. And this is very interesting, because we have talked about baby talk, the baby talk, and if more complicated when you are a baby or when you are older. I don't know, because I started learning my first language, my second language, when I was 8 years old. So I watched some videos where some children succeed in speaking 4 free languages. Perhaps it can be easier for her, but I think it depends from where you live, for your family, because perhaps a mother is French dad is Portuguese, and the other relatives are from the other countries. So it's a melting pot, realistic experience, and so it's very. And in this case, it's very easy because you keep in contact with all these realities. But I want to say it's not about the age, but it's about the consistency, because you passions, because for example, you want to organize a schedule where you for example, on Monday you want to study for 1 or 2 hours that language. The other day you want to study another language. But this even if you make this schedule, uh, there is the working question too. The working, because you have to work, so you some days you are tired, so you want to respect that organization, so it won't be easy. That's why I talk about the pressure, and you started punishing yourself because you was able to respect that schedule. And that's why I want to speak about pressure and the consistency, because there are days where you are completely busy, and so you can that day you can study that language, but you perhaps you have 5 or 10 minutes. And fortunately, always speaking about social networks, there is also the applications. There are applications, the apps. So I use, for example, Duolingo. It's a very common it's a very common application, and so you can use for those minutes that application, and it's enough for that day. There are the other days where you can study for more time that language. But so coming back to your questions, I don't think it's a age matter, age question. Because I think it's just a consistency, a patience question. If you want to study, started learning, I don't know, Arabic, Italian from another people, you can start wherever your age is, because you you can keep touching with keep contact with the other people, the native people. So it's that's why I told it's easier, because you can contact a native people and make a language exchange. So that people who wants to learn Italian, and me at the same time, and I'm Italian, and I want to learn, I want to practice, I want to improve Chinese. So each day, or on the weekends too, we can improving our skills. And so that's why I don't consider so important the age, because it depends from family. Because if that family is composed of people interested in languages, or people where a mom is from Nigeria, dad is from France. So in this case, if the parents started teaching that language, I think that baby, that that child is simply for as a fortunate situation. So it's a fortunate family, but I consider important as aspects, as precious aspects. Consider passions, interest, and no pressure about your moment, your completely personal moment about your language experience.
I think that's a very good lesson, that they shouldn't give up just because of the age. I think that for us, there's still a lot of room to continue because we have this passion. We don't need to be worried about that yet. And that's a good sign. So there's a long future ahead for HYPIA members. Over time, younger and younger people are joining, so they have very long futures ahead, and this is very encouraging. And on that happy note, I want to thank you, Francesca, for your time. It's so wonderful to have you in HYPIA, and look forward to your further contributions to our community. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you very, very much.